I wasn't sure if I wanted to make a standalone podcast about Pokemon ZA, but after spending 45 plus hours with the Mega Dimensions DLC, I have some very strong opinions about the gameplay loop. If you play Pokemon, you probably know where I'm going with this. My first of many AlphaPhenomenon Gaming Podcast rants is inbound, and yes, I lied about my last episode being my final one in 2025. Strap in. Howdy Hello, and welcome to AlphaPhenomenon Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Phat Love, and I'll be taking you on a journey through gaming with reviews, news, and commentary. Let's talk about the base game positives before I get into the reason I'm making this podcast. I love that we are finally in Generation 10, and open world is all but certainly the new standard for Pokemon titles. Since Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, along with Arceus, this has been the trend. Now, with Pokemon ZA, we have another open world entry, albeit we are confined to one medium-sized city. I enjoyed the story for what it was. I never expect to see over-the-top plot points, but with memorable characters and fun boss moments, I was not disappointed. I keep asking myself, though, how they're going to make another new legendary Pokemon interesting when they already have so many in the world they've created, but they've managed to pull it off. Zygarde has a 10% and 50% form and has to be at low health before he transforms into his final 100% form, which is the only form he can use to Mega Evolve. Now that's pretty cool if I'm being honest. While it did take me over 70 hours to beat the base game, I still enjoyed the writing put into the story. Props where they belong. Another aspect I found interesting is the wild zones. This is more of a neutral point, not really good or bad, just something that kind of exists in the game. The further you progress through the story, the more wild zones you get access to, allowing more Pokemon in your Pokédex to be caught. The game wraps up the game with 20 wild zones. That last wild zone, a particularly special one. When you unlock Wild Zone 20, you get guaranteed 2 or 3 alpha Pokemon to spawn in the middle of the zone, but the game randomly decides which Pokemon you get. Also, something of note, almost all 20 zones have different spawning Pokemon depending on the day or night cycle. Some Pokemon are daytime only, and others are nighttime only. And this brings me into my next unique gameplay addition, the day-night cycle, and I absolutely have to bring this up because it plays into the second half of what I want to say. Let me just pause real quick and say that this is the Speedy Cliff Notes version of Pokemon ZA. For a fully in-depth review, I usually go to YouTubers like Beat 'em Ups or listen to the Nintendo Voice Chat podcast for their thoughts and reviews. Alright, back to the topic at hand. During the day, it's all candy and rainbows, sugar and spice, and story progression if you choose. The night comes, and with the shadows come battle zones. Yes, another new gameplay mechanic that they can lean heavily into with ZA. You go into the battle zone. A few are randomly placed around the map, and you fight other trainers, your best Pokemon in your party. Or at least the best few you can get, so some of the low-level Pokemon hanging out in the back of your party can get free XP. This only lasts for a short window, and daylight shines anew. A notable thing about battle zones is that you have to use them to progress story moments, and this is really the only way you'll get decent money to buy Pokeballs, healing items, and later on, items to help EV and IV train your Pokemon, but more on that later. I do also want to mention briefly that there are shard crystals scattered across the city and on rooftops of buildings. You need to break these with Pokemon moves and collect them, because having a lot of them will help you earn Mega Stones throughout the base game for any Pokemon you want to Mega Evolve. Okay, and with that, I've laid the groundwork. Wild Zones, Mega Evolution, Day-Night Cycle, Shard Crystals, Traversal on streets and rooftops. You get it. Now let's talk about the reason why I'm taking the time to record this, all of the negatives, which greatly overshadow the good things to say about this game. Let's start with one of my glaring negatives of the base game, the platforming. I've never played a Pokemon game in my life that tried something so basic an addition and got it so wrong. There's a construction company in the game you get introduced to early on, Racine Construction. They play part in the story, but I'll leave that for you to discover. This old geezer, though, that you deal with through the game has a fun time creating platforming challenges with scaffolding and decides to do that all over the city. Oh boy, how exciting, right? Wrong. So certain story and a lot of side missions, honestly, require you to do complicated platforming challenges to progress. They also lock collectibles behind this mechanic that make the game much harder to play if you don't suffer through these obstacles. They even go as far as to double down on this in the DLC, which I'll jump into next. Overall, if you only play the base game and stop there, the story is good enough, and there are 70 plus hours of enjoyable gameplay, minus a few irritating additions that I don't feel push the series of games forward. It's when you step into the DLC that these irritations get a spotlight and grow even more cumbersome. Okay, from this point forward in the podcast, I am going to be diving fully into the Mega Dimensions DLC and talking at length about the negatives I found with this experience. At the time of this recording, I have completed the DLC main story fully and am working through side quests and completing my decks. Spoilers ahead. You have been warned. As if there aren't enough new mechanics, they introduce another one. You're introduced to a little girl named Ansha who is accompanied by her Pokemon Hoopa. In the first 5 minutes of the DLC, you discover that Hoopa can open portals to other dimensions if you feed it a donut. But don't worry, they only forced this mechanic for the entire DLC and the rest of the game. You better not be a full Dex collector, because if you are, get the tissues ready, because you're making a lot of donuts. What makes this so bad is that the trailer for the Mega Dimensions DLC shows you that you need berries to make donuts, and certain berries will have certain traits. A lot of YouTubers were making guides on how to farm berries so you're ready for the DLC, but then Game Freak walked up and slapped everyone's hand, laughing as they watched our balloons float away into the sky. And what I mean by that is this. They created brand new berries for the DLC. Hyperspace berries, to be exact. So all that time you spent collecting and watching guides and going out of your way to make sure you were ready meant nothing. And Game Freak laughs as you lose hours of your life trying to prepare for the upcoming DLC. But listen close, because that's not all, boys and girls. No. We have more unfortunate news. Any RPG player knows these next 3 letters and has the biggest eye roll and possible PTSD when they hear them. RNG. What game just popped into your head? Post it in the comments below and save my life or a fellow listener from wasting their time with a game that forces RNG mechanics into a single player experience. Now, onto the donuts. There are 6 flavor profiles for donuts, and all 6 have different results. But only 2 of them really matter, and that are the sweet donuts for a chance at shiny donuts, which give you shiny Pokemon, or a chance at shiny Pokemon, might I say. Of course, RNG takes place as well later. And then we have sour donuts for a chance at item donuts. This is item donuts, like more berries to make more donuts. This is for coins, because of course there's a Pokemon that requires coins to level up or evolve, I mean to say. And then other treasures and items for evolution or just in-game use. The rest of the donuts are just like take it or leave it results, like just dud donuts that you can make to jump into an area to try to catch a Pokemon to add to your deck so you haven't caught it yet. Do you know how many times I've had to watch YouTubers post videos about the newest best method to make donuts? Look, I won't go in depth on this because that's what Game Freak wants. More time wasted for you and more time wasted for me. When did a fun children's game become a serious action RPG with real-time strategy? In my opinion, the Pokemon franchise, if it's not accessible for a 10-year-old, it is too much. What drives the knife even further into my back is the fact that getting these new hyperspace berries isn't easy. You literally have to make donuts that RNG to finding more berries in hyperspace areas to get enough of them to progress the story. And while I'm riding this fury, let's circle back to those scaffolding platforms I mentioned in the base game. Yeah, those annoying platform challenges are back and mandatory to reach certain dimension portals. But that's not all. The portals live and die by the day-night cycle as well. So you have to do what you want and then move to the next daylight cycle to re-roll the portals and see what Pokemon are in those, and if you want to waste your time with them. Not to mention the research points you have to get in the Battle Royale at night for the base game are coming back in the form of research points, and you get those by grinding hyperspace areas inside the dimension portals for points. The final one of the DLC being 100,000 points. And another thing that really upsets me is the fact that even if you work hard and get level 100 Pokemon, the DLC you paid $30 for will soft lock you behind having to obtain certain berries to make a story donut, meaning you have to go grind out portals with berry item donuts, or you might as well fart in the wind while you run around these dimensions praying to get a lucky berry or two. The Pokemon in these portals aren't easy to catch either, for all the dex completing folks, because this DLC is Mega Dimensions, so all the Pokemon are above level 100, and you can't just stroll through and complete your objectives because they will attack you. And Alpha Pokemon are even worse in this DLC because they are relentless. Oh, let's not forget to mention the time limit you get in every dimension. How could I forget that? You didn't think you could just stroll into a dimension and take your time, did you? No. Game Freak decided that you have a time limit based on the donut you make and that donut's star level. Yeah, I forgot to mention the star limit on donuts as well. That's a thing. A really annoying thing, too. Star level 1 through 5, depending on how many berries are put into your donut and that berry's star attribute. But hold on. We have one more bullet point to make. If you KO or stun a Pokemon, you get one chance to catch them. And if you went into a dimension looking for a certain Pokemon, or you have a mission that gets you points for seeking out and catching one, and you fail to catch that Pokemon, too bad, so sad, there are no redos and there is no easy mode. The percent chance of another spawning is going to take you about 5 minutes to happen, and then it's a less than 2% chance. Okay, donuts require hyperspace berries. Hyperspace berries are only obtainable in Mega Dimension portals. You can only go into these portals with donuts. Now, to be fair, you can use base game berries to make a donut, but you're not getting above a 2-star rated donut, and that means a very small chance of finding hyperspace berries in a very small time window inside that dimension. You will only do this when your donuts run out, and they will, and you have to make a pathetic attempt to catch up to the DLC requirements. The donut attributes are RNG. The hyperspace portals are RNG, and what Pokemon you'll find in there as well. The story missions can soft lock unless you have the berries required to make a story donut. The platforming sucks, and the grindy nature of it all sucks. I am just praying that this is not carried forward into the next main entry in the series. RNG should only exist in multiplayer games, no exception. But I'm sure I'll have more to say on that in a future podcast. The very last thing I have to complain about is that the research tasks you are given to earn all 50 research levels in the base game do not get updated with the Mega Dimensions DLC. You do get a bunch of new tasks, but no new research levels. The amount of grinding it takes on the base game to earn all 50 levels is astronomically time-consuming. Even with the best YouTuber guide to farming battles for that final research task, the audacity of Game Freak to add a bunch of new tasks and no new levels is a spit in anyone's face that bought the game at launch. You were better off waiting until the DLC because you'll earn all 50 levels much, much, much faster. And while the DLC is far grindier than the base game, this one thing is the only quality of life improvement to the game. It is just a shame for all of those who bought Pokemon ZA at launch, and the exact reason why I buy games post-launch in case of quality of life improvements. Shame on me for having a franchise that I love and wanting to support it. Now, I'm sure I did miss things or didn't fully cover all of my complaints, but I have said my piece. That's what I wanted to get out, get off my chest, and express. Rant over. Now look, I really went in on this DLC because I have a soft spot in my heart for the Pokemon franchise. I've put over 115 hours into Pokemon ZA, so I've been pushing through, even with these glaringly obvious mistakes to the franchise. I just found this to be a DLC where it doubled down on the worst parts of the base game, and that made my ranking for this game honestly plummet. I would give the December 10th ZA experience a 7.5 out of 10. And I would give the Mega Dimensions DLC a 4 out of 10. It's a real low score. The only real benefit from the DLC or any Pokemon post-game story is the legendary and mythical Pokemon that they bring in. That's why we all show up, right guys? They really played it up here too, with an impressive number of past legendary Pokemon, along with Galarian and Alolan regional forms of Pokemon making an appearance. The Mega Dimensions DLC, Pokédex, it's pretty sizable, and there are a lot of good Pokemon in attendance. And really it all comes down to the type of Pokemon fan you are, casual or hardcore. They got me when I found out that my favorite Pokemon, Darkrai, was making an appearance. I'm a sucker for you. And from that, this episode was born. Thank you for supporting this podcast, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. That's all I've got to say. If you played it, let me know what you thought. Hit me up on YouTube or leave a comment on Spotify. Thanks for listening. I'm Phat Love, and this has been AlphaPhenomenon Gaming Podcast. Peace.